Welcome back to Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll. I'm your host, Mary Stockwell, and today we're tackling big questions in this episode, HR in flux, trends, turmoil, and transformation. If you've been wondering how HR is keeping up with today's challenges, from hiring struggles to AI-driven workplaces, you are not alone. And lucky for us, I have an HR powerhouse with me today, my friend and expert, Kelley Rexroad. Kelley is the host of What the Heck is Happening in HR podcast, an adjunct professor at the University of South Florida, and a well-respected voice in the HR community. Thank you for joining me today, Kelley. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm better because I'm here. Thanks.
Awesome. Before we dive in, Kelley and I wanted to share a quick little story from a meeting we attended in the Rocca di Papa, Italy. It was the first meeting our team had as we were standing up our global procurement team. This was the kickoff of our European team. Kelley, that kickoff in Rocca di Papa was such a memorable experience.
Indeed.
What do you remember most about it?
Besides the food, besides a bit of wine at times, besides the Pope being just over the other side of the hill, and the conversations we just had and how aligned everybody was, no matter where they came from.
Yeah, it was such a special time for me. So what stands out was really the special moment. We had so many special moments, as you mentioned. So things that stood out to me, you and I were the only women in the room. Yeah. And for me, as the first woman at Cardinal Health to reach that level in procurement, it was a milestone I'll always remember. And of course, we had an incredible leader in Phil Marsh. I remember, you were his HR business partner, really, right? So you helped shape that team and really build on that team. So you saw firsthand how strategic his vision was. Yeah. And honestly, it still holds up today.
Yeah. Oh, Phil was a great leader, and he knew how to pick the right people in the right positions. And, you were one of them.
Thank you. And then there was, the setting itself. We're staying in a former Catholic Cardinal's former home, right across from the Pope's summer residence. And as fate would have it, Pope John Paul II was actually there.
Yep.
So Rick Musi and I took a cab early one morning and got there just in time to listen to Mass. We were standing literally less than 100 feet away from him. I still get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. I just got goosebumps on it. I remember. I mean, you guys were like on cloud 9.
Yeah, I even woke up my sister so she could hear it. I called her on the phone, and so she was listening. She had no clue what he was saying because he was actually speaking in French to a group of French high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
It was so awesome.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that with the news of the current Pope and what's going on there. So it always takes me back to that location. It was so gorgeous.
It really was. And you really had a great impact on our team. And I'm proud to say I'm still friends with many of my teammates today, regardless of where they're at in the world.
Yeah, I really, the relationships from there have been amazing. I mean, even you and I, it's not like we see each other every day, but I know that if you called for bail money, I'd be there. And, but those don't go away. I think when you're in situations, and we were in such a growth mindset, and we were just get it done. We were dealing with ambiguity. And I think with all of that, you just trust and you move forward leading with trust.
Yeah, perfectly said. All right, let's dig in. Let's have some fun.
All right.
So,
seatbelt on.
Yeah. So if HR had a theme song in 2025, what would it be?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind, though it probably is not very trendy, and is an old Harry Chapin song. And then that is Cats in the Cradle. Now, a lot of people think Cat Stevens sang that, and that's kind of a Mandela effect thing. But the the story about it, and for people not aware of it, it's really a story about a father singing and with his son about the story with he and his son and how he doesn't really have time for his son. While his son is growing up, he's very busy, he's doing things. The son wants some attention and says, let's do something. And he's like, no, I'm really too busy. And then coming back as the son grows up, he really doesn't have time for his dad. And his dad realizes his son grew up just like him. And I really think with HR that if we don't change what we're doing, we're going to end up just like we are. And
Wow.
and this is not the time for it. That was the song that popped in my head. So I think it's really telling. I think it comes down to the relationships that you hear in that song, but I really do think that whole bit of, how are we going to make a difference? And is it ever too late? There's almost needs to be an epilogue to the song to say, well, what happened? Did he change? Or did he not? Or did they just never see each other again? Or what happened? Because the son just became very focused on his own family and his own dad wasn't part of it. And I think if HR doesn't get their act together, um, and we can talk about what that means, but if they don't, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to be in the same pigeonhole and they're just not going to have the impact that they can have.
Well, that's a really powerful choice. And I think, although there are many interesting song choices in my mind for 2025, leaders that I'm speaking with over the last several weeks, anyways, has me leaning towards Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash.
That's a good one. Yeah, a very good one. Yeah.
I think it really, it captures the uncertainty employees feel about layoffs and return to office mandates today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's certainly a big topic. I just did a webinar a few weeks ago on it with hundreds of people on it. It's obviously an interested topic for people and returning to office.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes here. But so let's dig into some of the harder questions.
Okay.
So what's driving the biggest changes in HR right now?
I think I th- I think there's more than one thing. I think there's a lot of minor things, but I think there's some major things. One is technology, and either not increasing the technology, not understanding the technology, not getting in front of the technology, and not even understanding how it's really your friend. I think return to office. I think that organizations didn't know what to do with HR or what to do with their workforce during COVID, and to think that's been 5 years. And what, can't you make this go away, or can't you make it all good? And can't you? And yet the employees were all concerned and all upset. And that role of where HR is in return to office, I think is struggling. They struggle with it, and I think there's kind of a lack of direction as to where business is going for lots of reasons. But I'm not sure for those folks that hadn't established them at the, I hate this phrase, but at the table, they don't even know where the table is right now because it's just they're all mixed up. Where is the business going? And if they don't have those tight relationships, and I remember conversations you and I had as colleagues about what's going on and how would you see it and what'd you hear? And it wasn't a gossip. It was trying to sort out where do we go? How do we impact? How do we influence? What is it that needs to get done? And how do we build other allies with it? And I'm not sure that all of HR has done that. And if they don't, I think that will be a huge challenge for them to have an impact on what's to come.
Yeah, thank you for those insights. I think leaders need to be ready for this shift of all of these things that are present today and may be present in the very near term.
Yep.
I think, of course, AIs, I think skill-based hiring, layoffs, employee well-being are really reshaping the workplace today. But the companies that thrive aren't just reacting, they're aligning their people strategy with their business strategy. So
Yep.
there are companies out there that are really working hard to get that right. And the real opportunity is leveraging talent optimization and data-driven leadership to turn disruption, which there's a lot of that
Yep.
you just talked about, into a competitive advantage.
Yeah, exactly. It's an opportunity to be able to almost blame all the chaos that's going on
Yeah,
and then be able to move that to say, this is the reason, then let's go and figure out
yeah,
how to rally your troops, you know?
yeah. I think that's could be a great way to look at it and spin things around and maybe even, and have better communication and conversations around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So the return to office debate, what's really happening? I know you recently had an episode on this and made some comments about, yeah, you can, what's the choices? So, what is it? What do you think what's really happening? And how is it going to impact people today, tomorrow, 5 years from now?
Yeah. Oh, here, let me get my crystal ball out. It's always so accurate. Um, I I think there's a variety of things happening. I do think there are people who go, "Oh, this is the opportunity. Let's get that layoff." And if they don't come back, we fire them. And I think you're going to lose people you don't want to lose. You're going to lose people out of positions you shouldn't have empty. And I think that's crappy if you don't do it with intention and with good communication. But I do think that exists. But I think there's a shift in power. And I truly believe that trust was broken 5 years ago. I mean, employees asked for a long time, can I work from home? Can I have more flexible hours? Can I do can I do that? No, no, can't do that. Got to be here. And then all of a sudden they did. And because they had to. And then suddenly it's okay. And now they're like, oh no, you got to come back because you're not being productive. Don't think that's true. And, studies show it one way. And of course, like Mark Twain always said, you can use studies and data. Maybe he didn't say studies, but data to show you the other way. And so they're on both sides. You've got to figure out what is your data, what's happening with your company, what's the reason you need them back. So your question about what will it show for the future, I think there's a few things. I think as kids coming out of high school into trade, into careers, into college, into jobs, they went to school under COVID and some in very big restrictions. There are social norms that they just don't know.
Mm.
There are people who have never worked in an office who are now being asked in the office.
Mhm.
And they don't know, even you don't put fish in the microwave. They don't know that. I mean, even stuff like that, they just don't know. And so and they don't know that there can be inappropriate things to share. So I think that return to office, we're going to have some societal skills that are lacking. I also think we didn't get good at some things. I think we thought, oh, one-on-ones on Zoom were going to work. No, because if you weren't good at them and weren't asking the right questions to begin with, you still aren't. And it actually gave them a reason not to do it so much, not to pop into an office. I do think once people are back in offices, they will understand the why. I think it's going to take a bit because they're going to miss things, being able to fill in laundry, whatever it is, eat what you want to eat when you want to eat it, be home with your pet. I think if there can be some compromise within there, maybe some anchor days and then some flexibility to be able to do it. I think that would be the way to be able to tap into the goodness of both, because you want collaboration, you want that energy, you want some very vibrant meetings going on. But I have seen places where they have meetings and they're all sitting on Zoom in their cubes and offices. I mean, what is the reason, for that? So I think it's a power struggle. I think the trust was broken. I think, I told you how to do it, and now we're going out. No, I don't. I'm not coming back. And I think there is this power struggle, But the fact is, it's a matter of choice. The businesses understand that people might not come back, and you, as an employee, you have the opportunity to not come back. Everybody gets a choice, and then you deal with whatever those consequences are.
Yeah, I've been having conversations recently with some senior leaders in cybersecurity. And, during COVID, they were you could live anywhere in the world,
Yeah,
and do whatever you need to do. And all of a sudden they're getting called back to the office. They might have a choice of one or four or five office hubs throughout the world. Well, if where they chose to live is nowhere close to that hub, um, they're not going back.
right,
And, I'm wondering, and I think it's a legitimate question that many are, how can companies afford to lose that kind of talent? What are they going to do? I think it could cost them again a competitive edge. And, and again, I think at the end of the day, employees are asking, should I stay or should I go?
I know. I think that's a great, a
And for
great,
companies, the
great point.
challenge is
I'm
real.
gonna
How do
have
they
that earworm in my head all day. You know that now. I'm
listen,
gonna
I
be
think
humming it at Aldi's later. So
my favorite store. And for companies, the challenge is real though. So how do they retain top talent while still driving business performance? I think we don't have the answers for that today. I think that's to be determined. But in my mind, as I have these conversations, I wonder how are they going to maintain a competitive edge when they're losing senior leaders of
yeah,
that
and
caliber?
you're at a time when you got boomers retiring. So you
Well,
have this mass exodus, if you will. At the same time, they can't just keep people to keep them. Oh, well,
right.
because that's what got them, in some predicaments they may have been in otherwise. It's about revamping your policies and your practices around having people be productive.
I agree. All right, we're going to move on here. So,
I,
what do leaders get wrong about hiring and retention today?
well, I'm not sure it's so different than what it's been. Um, I think, retention starts with recruitment. And you've got to engage their heart first and then engage their head and get them aligned with the mission, excited about what it is that they're going to be doing. And I'm not sure we still do a good job with that. I'm not sure we have good interview questions. I'm not sure we know what to do with the interview questions. I don't think we look at the data to see why people aren't sticking around. Why are people leaving in 18 months? What happened? Well, maybe it was crappy performance reviews. They never felt connected to the company. Maybe there was those bad bosses that are out there. I mean, I was really fortunate and had great bosses. So I think that finding the right fit, not being specific, not looking at data, I think those are the things that make the hiring wrong. And so then retention's just the result of what happens. They're not engaging with the person before they've even hired them. It's a courtship. It isn't, it isn't married at first sight. It is about being, my students will be used to that. I'm always throwing up pop culture, but it's a time to not move so fast you make the wrong hire, but also not so slow. Have quick, efficient processes, but have them meaningful. I just don't think they're doing it. They're not using tools that are available.
I agree. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
In my experience, one of the biggest hire mistakes I see is focusing too much on filling roles too quickly rather than building a workforce for long-term success. I mean, there's so many great tools out there, tools that I use every day, and I know there's tools that you use, but using behavioral and cognitive data to help leaders make more strategic talent decisions. When companies really use that kind of data-driven approach, they're not just filling seats. They're getting people, setting them up to thrive within their culture and their business model.
Right. And I think it's important for that employee value proposition and to establish and write out what that candidate experience should be to make a long-lasting employee. And if you don't know why people are coming to you, then they're not going to come to you. But really, to be able to create that magnetic recruitment is how you're going to have good sourcing. And just ask your employees, would you want your best friend to work here? And if they say no, then you've got some issues. And if they say yes, then okay, then what is it? Why are they there? What are those questions? And to your point, you got to look at the data. What's the story? Don't make up the story and then go find data. Get that data and then look, what is the story it's telling? I mean, it's always fascinating to see what it is. I mean, we were just talking about return to work, and then with the hiring, I mean, who isn't coming back to the office? Are they under one boss? Is it one office? What is going on that doesn't make them want to come back? And so with that hiring of new people, what makes you think the new people that you're hiring to replace the people who won't come back are going to be successful under that boss? Because if you didn't look at the data, you don't know that.
100%. 100%. All righty. So AI in HR, is it a game changer or is it overrated?
Those are two big words. I mean, those are like, you got the span there, right? I think it's absolutely a game changer. I think it's a necessary item. I was having this conversation with someone just entering the workforce, one of my students, and she's like, "Wow, it's so much change, even with this AI thing." And I said, there are people who didn't, who did their term papers on a typewriter and had to, be able to turn them in that way. And you might not have a carbon copy, but you had to learn to use a mouse and didn't grow up with one. And so, change is just inevitable for us. But I think AI can be a time saver. I think it can serve as assistance. I think it can serve, I mean, not all the time. I've had amazing admin assistants. So I think AI can pull out, it's the search of everything to be able to pull and give us information. So where it used to be just one search for engine, we now have tons of search engines. And if you use the same thing under different search engines, you get different things. Well, the same thing's true with AI. I think it serves as a complement to us right now, not a replacement. I do think it helps us get some routines down. I think it helps us build things, create a PowerPoint on what a 401k plan isn't something I need to perhaps spend a ton of time on, but that I can get 5 slides out of AI pretty quick. And then just be able to verify it. I think we're always going to need that human touch. Maybe I just want that to be, but I do think maybe I'm not ready to have that relationship with my robot yet. But I think we still need that. But it is a game changer. HR needs to be grabbing hold of that. And if nothing else, if you can't get a report, then have AI read your report.
Yeah, that's important. I'm all in on AI, and I do think it's a game changer. AI isn't here to replace HR. It's here to make it smarter, right? So it can write a job description that actually attracts the right candidates. It can create job ads that reach the right people, and it can streamline the hiring process without bias.
Yeah. Well, you still got to focus on, it's programmed by somebody.
True.
Right. And we're still people. And so there are those things we just don't know. So I'm not sure I would give it with no. I think I would give it less than what we know. But, hopefully there's a committee that kind of keeps each other in check to be able to watch all that. But I think at least early on here, AI can still be a little interesting. It can come up with some funky answers to things when you ask it.
It sure can. Yep. We've all had that happen and can chuckle about where'd that come from.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that when you combine AI with behavioral science and workforce data, you're not just hiring, you're building a sustainable, high-performing team,
Yep.
right? So I think that leaders who embrace the AI strategically aren't just keeping up with change, they're staying ahead of it.
Yeah. And I think as our questions get better of AI, we'll
Mm,
be able, it'll, it's always the quality of the questions. So to be able to say, it's my management team and their assessments, hey, is this what we need when you match it against our strategic plan for the 5 years? I mean, I would love to get to that point and at least be able to have that debate, maybe with the computer about, well, what about this or what about that? I love when you do put something in AI and it comes back and it says, do you want more of this? You want more? And you're like, didn't
maybe
didn't
so.
really think of that. Yeah. So I do think it's going to make us better. I mean, one of the things about having good bosses and the founder we both worked under with Bob Walter, I mean, I always left his office smarter than I went in because of the questions he asked. And I've never forgotten that. So I think the same is true with AI is good questions that we ask it will get it better and get what we need better. But we still got to know, right? I mean, because if you don't know what you're looking for, like I share with my students, I always say, bring me dinner. And then they're like, okay, you want somebody always says Publix fried chicken, by the way. Publix fried chicken? No, I don't want that. Oh, do you want like pub sub? No, I don't want that. And we go through that. And then finally somebody says, well, what do you want? And that's what we don't do with HR. We're like, oh, we've got an engineer one empty. We've got to fill it. But we don't say, what do you want? Is that necessary? Is that what we need? And so those questions are just so key. So we've got to get better without paving a cow path that we used before we had AI.
Yeah, that's
Putting
really
forms together.
imperative, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on to some HR myth building. What are some of the myths that maybe are humorous to you or really stand out that maybe employees on the shop floor might think, or even in the boardroom might think?
Yeah, I think there is still some of this. Well, I want to work with people. And so they'll be good in HR. And I just like, there are days you come home, and I love this profession. I didn't get into this, came in through communications, so I didn't choose it. It chose me, and then I chose it as life went on. But there are days you come home, and the last thing you want to do is look at a person or even talk to one. You just want just want to hug your dog. So that it's really, I think that still, I shake my head about that. I shake my head um, when people aren't true to themselves, so they don't think they can, they've got to give themselves up to the organization and whatever somebody else says. Um, I think the whole myth of being at the table, again, it just drives me nuts. I hate the fact that we're having that conversation still. I mean, it started back in the 80s about all of this with David Ulrich, and here we are still talking about whether we're supposed to be there or not. I mean, we have the most expensive part of the business, usually, the budget line item of people and all of their expenses. And one of the leaders we both knew used to say, you know, expenses walk on 2 feet. I hated that phrase, but it always stuck in my head. But I do think that myth of it's easy, anyone can do it, just add it to somebody's job, I think with HR in particular. The other thing is, I think that there's a one size fits all, and that's not the case. So computer-based learning's awesome, but it doesn't mean everyone's going to learn that way. And I'm still, and you can't just get the technology and assume people know what to do. I see so many HRIS systems and they're using 10% of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true about HRIS systems. Some people don't know how to use them. They're not using them to the full capacity. And, I think it's a shame because there's so much they can do. Some of the HR that I find a little humorous and you still hear about it today, and it may come back, resonate with our return to office policies, but the number one myth that I hear people saying, and I laugh out loud about, is remote workers are just binge watching Netflix in their pajamas. Yeah. So I mean, I laugh at that one. Really, productivity studies show, even from Stanford, that turns out that employees don't need an office to do great work. They just need trust and clear expectations, and that their productivity is actually equal or higher than in the office. So that's a little study from Stanford that I picked up on. The second one is, people only quit a workplace because they want more money.
Yeah, that's never true. I mean,
Never.
never, it becomes the easy thing to say because you don't burn any bridges.
That's right. Yeah.
And then what happens, it's self-serving to the people who are behind going, see, we're not paying well enough.
And they're not digging into the deeper issues,
No,
which
no,
could relate to a variety of things, right?
right.
Engagement, culture, bad bosses, bad hires,
Right.
all
And there's
types
a
of things.
reason that door got open and that person started listening to somebody else. I mean, again, they didn't put a number in front of them and say, let's do this. It's not, wasn't it Demi Moore, an indecent proposal? I mean, suddenly, who is it? Yeah, I think that's who was in that movie. And then, she just takes $1 million and her husband says, go sleep with Robert Redford, I think it was, for $1 million. I mean, you didn't just put money in front of them. There was a relationship, but you broke something in that relationship for the ear of that employee to be heard. It's never, you're absolutely right. That's a really good myth. I try to ignore that myth. I guess that's why it left my brain.
But it's still prevalent and you still hear it every day. So
It is.
I think, one other one that I just actually heard recently, that HR is just a fun fleece who ruin everything. Move on then.
Another one?
Yeah, no, I'm done with my myths.
Thank goodness.
Three that
Man,
I've been hearing. So, so what what's one thing every HR pro should do in the next 6 months to stay ahead? Okay, I like that plug. It's just gold, that's great advice. That's just gold. I think, HR pro and HR pros needed to hear that today. In my experience as a talent optimization consultant and positive intelligence coach, I see these challenges play out every day. All that's happening. One thing HR leaders can't afford to ignore, in my opinion, is employee well-being with everything that's going on right now. So toughen it out. I think
Knock it
all righty. As we wind down this episode, Kelley, I got a bonus question for you. Just want to know what's on your heart today that the world needs to hear. Thank you for that. That's really powerful. And there you have it. HR in Flux, Trends, Turmoil, and Transformation with the incredible Kelley Rexroad. HR is evolving faster than ever, and best leaders aren't just keeping up, they're adapting, strategizing, and leading with impact. Kelley, thank you so much for an engaging conversation, and most of all, your friendship. If this episode hit home, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll is on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. Want to keep the conversation going? You can connect with Kelley Rexroad on LinkedIn or check out her podcast, What the Heck is Happening in HR, or as she mentioned, take one of her certification classes. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn or visit Meritas Advisory Group, where we help individuals, teams, and organizations grow, optimize talent, strengthen workforce culture, and navigate change with confidence. Stay tuned for more powerful conversations this season. We're bringing you expert guests covering high-performance leadership, talent optimization, business communications, marketing strategies for consultants, HR rock stars making an impact, and a dynamic, well-respected coach on shaking shit up. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep optimizing, keep strategizing, and keep strolling forward. See you next time.